down the rabbit hole of cheap German super sedans, starting with the E60 M5, but you wanted something a little bit more reliable, something a little cheaper, and something with some more torque. You also looked at the Mercedes-Benz E63, but its NA platform and its head bolt issues scare you away. You then stumble across the Mercedes-Benz E55 AMG. The predecessor to the E63 AMG, the E55 AMG uses a supercharged V8. While its power plant and its cheap price may be enticing, I'm here to let you know what to look for so you don't get screwed. Real quick, I know y'all have been watching my videos, I see y'all have been watching my videos, but y'all not subscribing, y'all not liking, y'all aren't commenting. I need y'all to do all three. Let me know what car you think I should review next. Don't forget to like the video as it helps me reach out to more people and help me share my videos to people who actually need them. So if you could do that for me, that would be great. Thank you. These cars are surprisingly stout, but that also comes with the proper maintenance history. There are many things to look for to make sure you get into an example that has been well taken care of. Right off the bat, don't get a 2003 model. I always say to avoid the first model years. These cars were available from 2003 to 2006. Avoid the first model year. The first model year had issues with the radiator. So basically this radiator was a trans-cooler radiator combo. This system tends to deteriorate, causing trans fluid and coolant to mix, which means coolant ends up in your transmission, causing all sorts of problems. Even if you get an 04 to 06 model, it's recommended that you get a trans flush as soon as you get the car. Transmission health can be determined just by taking the car for a drive and seeing how smoothly it shifts. Other common issues include leaking valve covers. These don't pose that much of a mechanical issue aside from just dirtiness in the engine bay. The oil pan gasket is also said to leak. This can be a little bit harder to replace because it is located underneath the front subframe. When test driving your E55 before purchase, you also want to make sure that the engine doesn't move too much when it's revved. Right, these engine mounts are hydraulically controlled and these can fail. If the engine mounts fail, it can actually cause the manifolds to crack as well. One thing unique to the E55 is the SBC brake-by-wire system. This system was new for the E55 and then later scrapped because of how complicated and cumbersome it was. These have an SBC pump and you want to make sure that this is operating when you purchase this car. The pump is factory rated for 300,000 cycles, so if the car is high miles, you probably need to get this pump replaced. A failure in the SBC pump will result in a loss of power brakes, which is dangerous, so make sure you get this looked at. One final issue is that the fuel sender unit may leak, causing a fuel smell around the rear seats. Another big issue that plagued all E55s was the air suspension. These cars came factory equipped with air suspension and the bags tend to leak after a certain amount of years. If you have an E55 and it sags after, let's say, an hour or so after shutting the engine off, you may have an airbag leak or you have a leak in one of the lines. It's not uncommon, however, for these cars to leak after sitting for a couple weeks. That's normal. If your airbags are leaking and you drive the car around, you are prone to damaging the suspension components even further. This is including, but not limited to, the ball joints, the tires, the alignment. All those things can come out of whack when you drive this car with leaking airbags. So make sure to get the airbags looked at or changed over to a more conventional coilover setup. Finally, when looking at your E55, you want to address all the common cosmetic problems on both the interior and the exterior. Firstly, make sure that the dynamic multi-contour seats work. They have many buttons and many controls, so test them all, make sure that the seats work and are functioning properly. Another point of failure on these interiors is the start-stop button on the shifter. Just make sure it works. The door handles and the door lock actuators are said to fail prematurely on these cars. If you have the keyless entry system, the door handles are said to not work after like 2 years. So every 2 years, owners have reported that they have had to fix the door handles, which are approximately $250 each to replace. It's an expensive part, so make sure these work. Door lock actuators, however, are on the cheaper side if you rebuild the actuator by replacing the motor itself. These cars also have a leaking problem, whether that be around the panoramic sunroof, which is an option, or that be around the third brake light in the trunk. If you get the panoramic sunroof, make sure that it's not leaking, as this causes water to leak into the driver and passenger front footwell. As I said, make sure that the third brake light is intact, because if it is cracked, it can cause water to leak into the trunk. Another issue in the trunk is that the rear wiring harness that controls all your light, the tail lights, brake lights, your license plate light, can deteriorate. So make sure that this is intact, or else you'll have lots of problems with your lighting situation in the future. So keeping all that in mind, you want want to make sure that you find a lower mile example. These are not going for that much right now, as we'll see in a minute, but make sure that you find one that's as stock as possible. If you find one that has been upgraded, make sure that it's either upgraded by a well-renowned tuning company or it has all the receipts from the shop it was upgraded in. You really don't want to find any DIY project cars because they will have the most problems. Moving on to Facebook, as I said, we want to avoid the 2003 model year because of the trans cooler radiator issue. So here we have an example. It's 2004 for 10 grand. Okay, we want to make sure that we're sticking around the 10-11,000 area, as that is going to be the better priced range. These can get up to the mid 20s, but if you stay under like 14 or so, you'll probably get the best deal. This is one for 10 grand, has a little bit high miles. We really want to stay under 90. Even better would be under 80, but 120,000 miles is not that bad. As you can see, this car is black on black, pretty standard spec, black on black with the wood trim. They're asking 10 grand for 04 E55 with 120,000 miles. This isn't that bad of a deal. For 120,000 miles, I'd really try to get it under 8. As you can see, he's asking 12K, but he brought it down to 10. The car is full bolt-ons. These would be the mods that you'd install if you were to buy one of these cars to make it faster. But again, as I said, you really want to make sure that there is paperwork for all of these mods that are installed, because there are a lot. You have an upgraded pulley, upgraded intercooler, long tube headers, different injectors, different tune, and it's running 14 pounds. With 120,000 miles, this car has probably been ran pretty hard, and you really want to make sure that you get all the paperwork on this car. Moving on, we have a highly modified example here. As you can tell just by the front, we got modified headlamps, and you can see the upgraded intercooler. This one they're asking 11.9. It's an 05 model with 96,000 miles. He says it has too many upgrades to list. I believe him. Again, when you're looking for these cars, you really want to make sure you get one that's as stock as possible, but I'm just showing these simply because there aren't that many for sale right now. These are hot cars right now, and people are realizing that they're at the bottom of the market, and so they're scooping them up. I would only recommend you getting a car that's modified if you plan on doing the exact modifications you find. You don't want to settle if you're getting a modified car. You want something exactly how you spec'd it, because you're going to be losing money otherwise. This is not a bad car. 11.9, 96,000 miles with all these mods it has. I'd definitely offer something closer to 10. Maybe 10.5 would be the highest I go, but I'd definitely offer around 10, because this is a highly modified example, and people, when they buy these, they want stock ones for the most part. What else do we have on Facebook? Here we have an 05 model. They're asking 15 grand. This one is 80,000 miles. This one's a nice clean example. This one doesn't have as many mods as the other two we saw, plus it is black on this peanut butter interior. This interior looks way better than all the black standard interior options. Most of the cars will be optioned with a black interior, so when you find one that's different, it's definitely a plus. Very nice, very clean. Later model years, so it's always going to be a plus when it comes to resale. Low miles, so you know that it won't have some of the quality issues, especially on the interior, as some of the other examples. This one's a good combination of spec and price. If you could get this under 13, that would be a steal. Moving on to Craigslist, because there really aren't that many deals on Facebook right now, but on Craigslist there are 0 deals. On the whole East Coast, there is not a single E55 AMG for sale on Craigslist, and I think this is the first time I've ever looked up a car on Craigslist and found 0 examples. This is the beginning of the downfall of Craigslist. No one is using this site anymore. As you can see, dealers are like spending the 25 bucks to put up their ads 6 or 7 times and calling it a day. I don't know how they were making money before, but this ain't it. Not a single E55 AMG on the whole East Coast. All right, moving on, Auto Trader. Here we got an 06 last model year. This is something you want to look for. 14 grand they're asking, 111,000 miles. This isn't too bad of a deal as it sits, but what makes this car special is the fact that it is a Kleeman tuned car. Now Kleeman is a tuning company that tunes AMGs similar to like Roush would tune Ford, but they make special packages, special tuning packages for these cars. I'm not sure what stage this car has in terms of tuning, but it is a Kleeman tuned car, and those tuning packages range from like 3 grand to maybe over 12 grand. So as you can see, this car has a panoramic sunroof. You want to make sure that you look out for leaks with this, and to make sure that the motors for this are working properly. This car also has a brown interior. Very nice spec car here. We have an 06 brown interior Kleeman tuned for a decent price, 14 grand. This would be something I'd look at specifically just because of how good the spec is. If you can get this down to under 12, that would be a fire deal. The 111,000 miles makes it a little bit easier to negotiate on, so that's always a plus. Here we have an 05 example, 15,999 they're asking, 89,000 miles. This is a nice clean example. Again, black car, what the interior looks like. Black on black wood trim, pretty standard for the E55. 89,000 miles. This example is very clean. If you want to get into an E55 and you want the most value, you really want to look for the most stock example you can find, and this is it right here. Doesn't have the panoramic sunroof, but again, that could save you problems in the future. Just a very overall clean car. 89,000 miles for an 05. This is a clean car, and they are trying to upsell you here. 15,999. That's a little high for this many thousand miles. Just a little high. I probably offer 14 for this car, just because of how clean it is. You know, it's been taken care of. Here we got another 06 model. Again, another standard color, black, very clean. One thing to tell how clean this car is to look at the headlights, right? Headlights are clear, it means very clean car. Interior is nice, minimal wear on the seats. Standard spec, black on black with wood trim. Okay. As you can see here, there's been a lot of aftermarket work done on this engine. We can see the mods in a second. This one's also clean and upgraded, unless it is the same one we saw earlier, but I doubt it. The upgrades for this car include Kleeman crank pulley, UPD supercharged pulley, Kleeman mid-length headers, underhood ice tank, and 80mm throttle body. Also has a race IQ tune and full intake. So this car is properly modified. Again, mods don't equal price, so I don't know about 20 grand for this one. It's been heavily modified. It does have low miles, 53,000 miles for an 06. So it's probably one of the lowest miles, latest model year cars you can find, but it is heavily modified, so I wouldn't really recommend paying over 15 for this. Maybe going up to 16, but I definitely offer 15. All right, this is definitely out of our price range, but I just wanted to show you because it is a rare car. Not sure why the pictures are up at the top of the screen, but this is an E55 AMG wagon. This is gonna be one of the rare specs of this car. The combination of the high torque and the practicality of the wagon make this a highly desirable car, and that combined with the fact that it was made in low production numbers makes it pretty rare and pretty expensive. Again, a lot of these E55 wagons are going to be used heavily, so even ones that have 110,000 miles are going to be for 25 grand. Just something to keep in mind. As you can see, this one does in fact have rear facing seats. But as we move out of our price range, let's go to Car Gurus and see what the cheapest options are. They didn't even have a cheaper option than Facebook, surprisingly, but the cheapest one on Car Gurus for $11,999. What is this? An 04 model with 148,000 miles. Very high miles for one of these, but again, they are pretty stout, so the engine and drivetrain will probably be okay at this high mileage. It's just quality issues such as creaks and rattles on the interior and different other plastic things breaking. But as you can see, it's a champagne on black car with wood accents. Not the cleanest car, as it has 148,000 miles. You can see in the seat, definitely has some wear. This is something I definitely wouldn't pay more than 9 grand for. I'd probably offer 9 grand or 8 grand just to start and see where that goes, because of the high miles and because the interior is properly worn. Again, with these types of cars, especially high mileage ones, you want to make sure that they have a good maintenance history done by a reputable shop or dealer. You don't really want a DIY project car if you're getting into one of these. Just be safe and get a well taken care of one. Moving on, we have another 04. This one has a lot of modifications in terms of exterior, bodywork modifications, suspension, wheels. As you can see, it has a carbon fiber front splitter, rear diffuser, it's lowered, custom wheels. This would be a car that you would get if you wanted a car with this look. All the mods are already done, black on black. It's running out of the box. It has 133,000 miles though. A little bit high for one of these, especially with all these mods, considering the price. 130,000 miles with all these mods for an 04. I definitely wouldn't pay more than 10 grand for. I'd offer 10 grand on this car, simply just because mods don't sell. It does look nice to those who think it looks nice, but at the end of the day, it's not factory, so the majority of people aren't gonna want it. These cars do have the capability of going 200 miles an hour plus, so people do modify them often, but when it comes to resale, you definitely want one that has the least mods and the one that's as clean as possible. Finally, we have this blue one on Car Gurus, $14,995. We're just now getting to the edge of our price range, and it's still kind of high in terms of miles, 110,000 miles. Blue on black car with the light brown wood interior. Not that bad of a spec. The blue is kind of weird. It has a panoramic sunroof. The blue is a love it or hate it color, kind of like a light blue. But again, as I said, what really matters is the maintenance history. You want one that is properly taken care of, or else you're just going to run into more problems in the future. This one looks pretty clean. Not really much to say about it. The price is a little high for what it is. 110,000 miles for 15. I definitely would offer like 11 on this. I wouldn't really go over 12. So 11 would probably be my offer on this one. Not a fan of the blue. Doesn't really speak to me. So I'd offer 11. But as we move out of our price range on Car Gurus, let's go over to eBay Motors and see if there's any deals on eBay Motors. Surprisingly, there are no deals on eBay Motors. The only thing on eBay Motors is this wagon that we looked at earlier, right? There are actually no E55 AMGs with the supercharged. They have the old ones and the new ones, but no supercharged E55s on here, which is really crazy, but expected as there weren't any on Craigslist either. As you can see, these cars are going quickly. People are realizing that these are cars that will never be made again. The E55 AMG, while renowned for its 5.4 liter supercharged V8, can't hide from its early 2000s Mercedes design and is plagued with small issues that make it unmistakably German. As with most early mid-2000s German cars, a lot of the technology is more or less experimental. Systems like the radiator trans cooler combo and the SBC brake-by-wire system make maintenance for the E55 rather tedious. Luckily, as these cars age, their aftermarket support has grown and there are many aftermarket repair solutions that are way cheaper than OEM. Real quickly, I'm just going to list all the problems and make sure that you know when you're getting into your E55 AMG. You want to make sure you don't get an 03 model because you risk your trans fluid mixing with your coolant. You want to make sure that the trans connector flange is not leaking, as this causes damage to the trans ECU and the conductor plate. You want to make sure that it shifts smoothly, because if it doesn't, this is a sign that you need to change the trans fluid. You want to make sure that you check all the gaskets. The valve cover gasket and the oil pan gasket tend to leak. You want to make sure that the crank position sensor is working. You want to make sure that when you rev the engine, it doesn't move too much. This would indicate that the motor mounts are failing. You want to make sure that the whole pulley system operates quietly and smoothly. You want to make sure that the supercharger clutch isn't making any noise. You want to make sure that the SBC pump is working. You want to make sure that the intercooler pump is functioning properly. And you want to make sure that the fuel sender unit isn't leaking. If it is, you'll be able to smell gas around the rear seat. Suspension problems all revolve around the Airmatic air suspension. Make sure that the bags aren't leaking. Make sure that the suspension components are all tight. If the car is driven with malfunctioning air suspension, it may have other suspension issues that you need to look out for, such as issues with the ball joints and the control arms. And finally, when looking for interior and exterior quality issues, you want to look for the sunroof. If it has a panoramic sunroof, make sure it's not leaking. You also want to make sure that the panoramic sunroof motors are working properly. For the doors, the door lock actuators can fail and you can replace these rather cheaply if you're willing to do the work. Also, if you have keyless entry, the exterior door handles are prone to failure. On the shifter, the start-stop button is also said to fail. Check to make sure this works. With the trunk, make sure that the third brake light is intact. This is a place where water can leak into the trunk. Also, make sure that the rear wiring harness is intact, as it is said to deteriorate prematurely. This will cause issues with your rear lighting, such as your brake lights, your turn signals, and your license plate light. But again, these issues are really issues that could happen to any car. The E55 AMG is one of the most reliable AMGs ever made, and that is why you really can't find any for sale. But that's really it. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what car you think I should do next. Let me know how you think I could improve these videos, and y'all have a good one.